even if that person's thinking about having a drink at 9:30 in the morning, it doesn't mean they're going to have a drink at 9:30 in the morning. It means that the stirring is starting. And they maybe have a really busy life, take the kids to school, do the shopping, do whatever they need to do in the office environment. And, call it the beer o'clock or the wine o'clock that comes out at 5 or 6 o'clock, is all of a sudden the brain says, once you have that first sip, thank you for listening to me. Now we can calm down. So what I'm saying is that we need to train the brain to not reach for that frenzied moment of alcohol to be the solution.
Yeah.
Which is very easy, isn't it?
What do you mean, Tom?
Well, I'm very lucky in that I don't really form substance-based habits that easily. And all throughout quarantine, I think most days I would have a drink. And it was, the days would stack up onto each other, then I'd start to get worried. And I'd like take a day or two off to just prove myself that it's like, this isn't permanent, is it? Because we were almost excited. Well, I can't speak for everyone here, but it was almost exciting that, like, ooh, it's like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where it's like, ooh, look at me, I'm naughty, I'm drinking at 10. But then it got too real. And I hope people were able to escape that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. Mark, you want to say something?
There were some funny, social media posts, into the COVID, maybe 30, 60 days, where my coffee hour is getting very, very close to my wine hour. And I had mentioned that to somebody and they laughed and they sent me a text picture of a mocha beer that they had started drinking at 11 or whatever. And, and some people were very open about it and saying, yes, my drinking has increased exponentially since with Thomas. I'm glad I don't love drinking. So I that wouldn't be something that would, I would fall prey to, but I could see, and, we've talked about this a lot. It's that internal voice, right? And it's that, as you start to get anxious and then you use whatever it is you're using, your brain starts to get weaker and think that you can't handle these situations. I'd love to hear what you have to say about that a little bit more for folks.
Yeah. It is based on a reinforcement. So the first thing to go back to what George was saying is, if you don't have the first drink, you don't have to worry about the second drink. For some people, it's true that when they have that first drink, they just can't stop. It just is a runaway train. Again, it's not about morality, it's about mortality. It's the way the brain works. But if you are drinking or using any drug to avoid a feeling, like feeling angry, anxious, or sad, every time you use a drug or an alcohol to avoid that feeling, just like Mark's saying, you begin convincing yourself you're not strong enough to deal with that feeling. Now, if you don't think you're strong enough to deal with feeling sad or anxious or angry, what do you think happens to those feelings? Do they get worse? Of course they do. They don't go away, because what you think affects what you feel. If I think, oh my God, I can't deal with this, you are going to feel whatever it is even more. And your brain says, well, what are you waiting for? You know what to do. Go have a drink. Release all that dopamine. Get some pleasure. Get some relief. Block that memory. Stop that feeling. And so you use. And then next time you begin to have that feeling, your brain even quicker says, what are you waiting for? And you actually begin creating the very feelings that you were trying to avoid to begin with. There's a wonderful book. Remember The Little Prince by Saint-Exupéry? It's a children's book. If you go and find chapter 12, it is about an alcoholic. It's one page. Chapter 12 of The Little Prince. It is definitely worth a read. Little Prince comes across a planet where there's a tippler, used to be named for an alcoholic. And he says to the tippler, why are you drinking? He says, I drink because I need to forget. He says, forget what? He says, I need to forget that I am ashamed. He says, ashamed? Ashamed of what? And the tippler says, ashamed that I drink. I mean, what could be more perfect a description? How many people feel so ashamed and guilty that they are drinking at all, and then they drink again because they don't want to feel ashamed or guilty? We see it all the time. Not about morality. It's about mortality, the way the brain works. So yeah, right now in COVID, just because you're not going into work, just because you're stuck at home, just because maybe there are all these scary things out there, first, it doesn't mean you're alone. And it really doesn't mean that you need to then go and have a drink at 10 o'clock in the morning. But for those people who already are at risk, I think the risk is exponential. I think it's huge because in one way, you're isolated. You're feeling all these feelings. You may not be able to get to the groups that you go to. You may not think you've got the supports that you have, but let me assure you, you do. Those supports are still there. We now have virtual AA groups that are just tremendous. And I think I might have mentioned this before, but some of my patients are going to AA groups in other parts of the world. It's the coolest thing for them. So yeah, there may be the time difference, but they're still going to an AA group in London and checking it out. And they're realizing that people have the same concern. This one guy said, I thought I was the only one in the world who couldn't stop drinking if I was drinking. I thought I was the only one in the world who had this degree. And I'm realizing it's people all over the world that may have this. That's what the fellowship of AA is about. That's really that ability to share with somebody else. And it's the same thing that we've been talking about all night. You know, whether it's feeling suicidal or whether it's worrying about drinking, there is someone there who can be that lunch lady for you, that charismatic person who believes in you, who says, you're okay. Let's talk about this. It's happening. Why? What's going on in any of the domains? Let's look again at why it's happening instead of judging it, which is only going to make you feel more angry, anxious, or sad, because that's what judgment does. That's what prejudice is. That's what stigma is. It's about judging each other and sometimes judging ourselves. But you use the I am approach, you can say, okay, even that judgment is my I am, but I don't have to like it. I can change it. Let me look again at why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's part of what the I am approach is all about. That's what it has to offer you. So you can read more about it on Psychology Today on my blogs. You can get one of my books called Do You Really Get Me? Learn about the I am, because especially right now during COVID, you may have time to read. So why not?
Stretch the canvas, rush with madness. Is it sadness or just a show